Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Ajayi, and by the special grace of God, I am the president and the CEO of Foundation for Family Reformation. It's an NGO that is saddled with the responsibility to help you to raise the 21st century child. We also discuss family issues, things that may be bothering you as far as your family is concerned. And this is the program that we called Prime Parent. This morning I want to talk to us about child's discipline. And this is one thing that every parent must have an idea. You must be able to understand what it means to give discipline. You should be able to differentiate what is discipline and what it is not. You understand? So come along with me as I break some things down in a very simple way, very simple form for you to understand what it means to give discipline. And then quickly, let me also put something forward that discipline can differ from culture to culture. For us, the Africans, there are some certain things we call discipline that the Caucasians, or the Western world may not see or buy the idea fully. And the way we are brought up also matters. Our background, the way our parents brings us up. A lot of the time, we may want to apply the same method or the same principle. But the present age, things have changed. Because of this mixed, confused culture misunderstanding, okay, that is happening today in our world, the concept is now completely different. So you see an African man that wants to raise a child like a British man. You see an African man or a parent who believes that there are certain things that he should tolerate because it is African. And why there are some who believes that, look, we have our own traditional way of doing things. So this we will talk about, but something has to cut across. It has to be a balanced message, and that is where I'm going this morning. Because when you're talking about a child in Nigeria is not different from a child in the UK. It's not different from a child in the US or in the Caribbean or in China. A child is a child. And I will tell you the characteristics of a child, of which I mentioned them in my older videos. A child remains who they are. And all what we need is to guide them, tailor them to that direction that it will be profitable for them. So now, the first thing I have here is, what is discipline when it comes to child management? I said it is the practice of training a child to obey rules and order, which is meant to influence and control the way the child behaves and live among other people. That is the definition I give discipline when it comes to child management. Underline. So when you want to study this course I call child management, this is what you must have at the back of your mind. Okay? This is what you must have at the back of your mind. It is the practice of training. They say practice makes perfect. So it is what you practice that becomes part of you. If you don't practice it, there is no way it can be part of you. Remember that particular word of scriptures that says, train a child in the way it should go. Okay? He said, when he's old, he will not depart. There is a way every child must go. Child A has his way. Child B has his way. Child C has his way. As a parent, you must understand each of the ways. So when you are dealing with Samuel, this is Samuel. When you are dealing with Gabriel, this is Gabriel. When you are dealing with Rashida, this is Rashida. And that is the only time this can make a meaning. So it is the act of practice to train, to obey. Act of practice to train. The training involves training the child to learn to obey rules and order. It is only when a rule is followed that order can come into existence. Unlike what we have in our world today, where everything goes. We can't continue like this. So let the charity begins from home. This is meant to influence and control, okay, the way the child behaves and live among other people. Nobody is an island. Today, we just want to survive. We can't survive alone. There is no way a single person can succeed alone without others. That is why a child must be taught how to live among other people, what is acceptable in society. Now, by way of introduction, I said discipline is the very core issue in child management, and this must be done in love and with love. Let me say here that love and discipline are not antithesis. That is, it is not words and opposites. As a matter of fact, one is a function of the other. What am I saying? You give discipline to your child because you love that child. That's why you said rebuke and instruction. They will correct, they bring correction. But a child that is left to his own will be a shame to his parents. So you do it in love. You correct with love, and you do it in love. If you are too scared to correct a child, to discipline a child, then take it from me that you hate that child. That's why he said, when you spare the rod, you spoil the child. So, let me tell you something about the child. As I said, we will build it up. A child being a unique complex with bundle of unrefined traits and of a necessity in need of a process of training and reforming under a careful watch of an informed parent who must bring out the possible best potential from an awe of imperfection. In my older videos, I talk about who is an informed parent. Somebody who is armed with knowledge. Okay? Who has the information, the right information, and is ready to give it. Okay? So, a child, as I said, is a complex, what we call tabula rasa. a clean slate. They carry some certain traits with them, inborn. It comes with them. So once the child comes around, your duty is to see how you can apply those information you have gathered, including your own experience, including what you yourself has experienced as an individual, and apply it to the child as they grow. Parents must understand that discipline is an important instrument in their hands to set in motion a campaign that must rescue a born delinquent from self-destruct. Discipline in your hand is to help the child to live well. A child does something that you know that this thing that this child is doing, by your experience, you know that this is where it's going to end. This child will eventually destroy himself or destroy herself. It is your duty as a parent to intervene. And your intervention must be systematic, must be a layer upon layer. Most problem we have today in our world that parents have is that they suddenly wake up when the child is already a teenager, and then they begin to ask questions, where did I miss it? You miss it 13, 14 years, 15 years earlier. You have missed it. Because child management is not a crash program. It's not something you can just wake up into all of a sudden and they say, oh, how do I go about it? No, it doesn't work that way. From the very first day the child is born, you must be available. And then you begin to lay these layers, a little here, a little there. A little here, a little there. Line upon line until you get your desired purpose. Now, let me quickly talk to you about facts about discipline. And I said, every child must experience discipline. It is important. It's like a medicine. If you want to look at it in that direction, it's like a medicine. Every child must be able to experience discipline. So if you are the kind of a parent who is too scared to see your child in some form of difficulty or any kind of pain or discomfort, then you are not ready to make that child live a successful life. Get me right here. Discipline, as I've defined, is completely different from punishment, though it's an integral part of discipline. So when we get to punishment, we also talk about it. But here, we are talking about telling a child how to obey rules and order. That we train his mind on how to behave and how to live among other people. Very, very straightforward. Another point I have here is that he has to learn to conform to custom, to live in a manner acceptable to others. I mentioned it before. You don't have a child who does what he wants when he wants it, anywhere, anyhow. Your child comes late to school every day. That is an act of pure indiscipline, radiating from you, the parent, yourself. A child goes to sleep at 1 a.m. watching television, and in the morning sleeps till 8, 9. before you wake the child up and dress for school. So you can see what we're talking about. This child has now officially been told that, look, there is no rule anywhere. There are no order anywhere. Anything can happen, anything goes. No, sir. So when you see children that comes to school perpetually latecomers, you can see how it is. Take your child to a friend's house. You went there throwing things, wrecking their furniture, kicking the children, injuring them. No, you have to be told that, look, you don't behave anyhow to other people. A child must be told that other people matters. It's just like the way and the manner the so-called politicians we have today are treating everybody. They never learned discipline. Who ought to teach them did not do a good job on them. And that is the truth. When you can frankly use public funds, money that is supposed to belong to every other person is used and diverted to private use, and nothing happens. This is the major problem we're having in our society today. So if you want a good society, let's start from these children. Let them know this is how things are done. Let them name principles of knowing how to live, not just how to make a living. You know, you may know how to make a living, and yet you don't know how to live. So, just not to waste most of our time, I go to the next point. He must be taught the limit of freedom. He must know what is safe and what is not safe. I've mentioned that before. When we're talking about limit of freedom, that was looked somehow, freedom, limit. Every freedom, a freedom that does not has a limitation is a disaster. You understand what I'm trying to say here? When a child is given freedom, he must also learn to observe those limitations by taking responsibility. You bought a child a bicycle and he has to ride it. Now, did you give a time frame while he has to be with that bicycle? Did you tell that child how to care for that bicycle? That is taking responsibility that limits the excesses of that freedom. A child wants to go out to visit a friend or go to join other friends for a party. Do you set a time limit when he has to return? Do you tell that child that when he comes back, he needs to report to you? So as their capacity grows, their legitimate needs is self-expression, being able to have freedom. But this freedom must be limited by their ability to take responsibility. So when you do that, you discover that you are balancing things up. Another point here is that he must learn to accept a no. Today we raise children who believe they can always have their way, irrespective. I want this, made it available. I want that, made it available. The day that this thing is not now available, then they begin to throw tantrum. They begin to look at you in the face. In fact, they may go out and steal. So letting a child to understand how to accept no is a very important part of discipline. Even when it's available, you can't have it now. What we call delayed gratification is part of principles of discipline. Delayed gratification. This thing, I want it now. You know that it's not something bad, but because you want the child to know that, look, there's a time for everything, and you cannot always have what you want when you want it. If he doesn't experience it, he will never know. So, telling the child no is important because it builds the character of the child. Another point here is he must learn to respect the properties of others. I mentioned that. And that others matters. And then finally, he must learn obedience. This is key and vital in child management. Now, let me take us to consequences. I never intend that this video should be long. Consequences of indiscipline. Consequences of indiscipline. When the child does not have discipline, what could come as a result? It represses the child's potential. You know how this happens? There's a certain thing, potentials a child carries that can only come alive when the child goes through some particular process. Okay? When he goes through a particular process. If the child did not go through that process, that potential may never come out. That potential may never come out. So allow these children to partake in some certain exercise. When you tell a child to read, initially you may be afraid that it's not too sound. So let him just do some few hours of reading and then he goes to sleep or he goes to watch television. Until a particular time when there is no electricity supply and then the TV is off. So that which has been stealing the child's time and repressing his potential is now out of the way. This child now becomes bored, and before you know it, he started exploring other things, other ways to keep himself busy, and then you will know that this child is brave. You now know that this child is temperament. You now know that this child is kind. You now know that this child can be so focused and sustain attention like that. So when you don't give discipline, or there's a lack of discipline, one of the major problems a child can have is that it will repress that child's potentials. Another point is it gives the child false impression about himself or his personality. Excuse me. A child who behaves anywhere, anyhow to everybody, who bullies other people, who believes he knows more than himself, a child whose everybody wants to avoid, and yet he thinks in himself that is the star boy, is the star girl. False self-impression about their personality. Another point is that it breeds aggressive behavior. Aggressive behavior. Saw one young man the last time I visited their home, and he was talking to the mother directly at the face because he was being scolded about some certain things in the house, and then he looked at the mother in the face and said, look, don't let me handle you. A boy of 13 telling the mother, don't get me angry. Don't get me angry. That is signs of lack of discipline. Another point I can make here is that they grow up and becomes bad parents. A lot of the time when you see parents that raise bad children, look at their own background. You will discover that they themselves, as children, never experienced discipline. That is it. So what you don't have, you cannot give. So one, as a person, you do not experience discipline, you can't give it. So it goes from generation to generation. Okay? These children, lack of discipline can cause insecurity in children. Insecurity. Somebody does something that he has been struggling to achieve, then suddenly become threatened by that person's abilities. They become envious, they become jealous. That's why some can go as far as killing other people. It's lack of discipline that causes all those kind of emotional and psychological setbacks. Insecure. They are threatened by other people's abilities. When they see other people doing better than them, they are insecure. They become, this inferiority complex comes all over them. That is also a sign of lack of discipline. Okay? Now, another point is, when you begin to see other parents sending their children away from your own child because of the kind of tricks he teaches them, or he beats them, or he bullies them, or he injures them, or he takes their things, that is a sign of indiscipline. Other parents will kindly withdraw their children, or they will tell their children and their words clearly, stay clear of so person. It's a very terrible sign of indiscipline. Okay? This set of people are also accident prone because of their carelessness, because of lack of obeying rules, obeying order, lack of being able to follow order. They behave anyhow, so they become accident prone. There was a sad story some years back. I'm running up with this now, where a couple left their two kids inside a car by the side of a lagoon somewhere. They want to buy a fresh fish somewhere there. And because these children are always hyperactive, they don't listen, they have never at any time cautioned them. And right inside this vehicle, they started turning the whole place upside down and doing all kind of things there. Unfortunately, that car was just down the slope. And then the handbrake, they pulled it, they pulled it down. And that's how this car just rolled down into the lagoon. And that was the end of the two boys. So, being accident prone is one of those things that we see as a sign of lack of discipline in children, even in adults. Because all these things we are saying, you also see them in adults. So let's watch out. And generally, they set bad examples. Bad examples that are notable. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to make us to understand here today is bringing into our consciousness why we need to take the issue of discipline very seriously. It is only when we bring discipline into our lives that our country can change. All the menace, the madness that we see around today, that we complain about, that even the church and the mosque cannot handle, everything is as a result of indiscipline. A parent who is going against traffic rules, when you need to stop, you did not stop, and you have children inside that same car. When a father abusively treated another road user in the presence of the children. When parents get money, ill-gotten wealth, they bring it home, and the children knows that your salary is not what you are coming home with. Then you will build a generation that will only lay waste all that you have gathered. And until we step up and begin to do things properly, the way it should be done, I tell you, people, that we may be here for a very, very long time. My name is Tony Ajayi, and I want to thank you for your time. If you are watching this on YouTube, please click on the like button and share this. Let it go wild. And until I come your way again, I want to say thank you for listening.